Hey guys, thanks for joining me again. This week we're going to look at fire dampers, but more specifically we want to look at fire caulking in and around the retaining angles and determine what your thoughts are. I know some of you have probably required this, others haven't, but I really want to kind of address it and talk about what some problems could be by placing fire caulking in and around this area.
Contractors are increasingly being required to provide certain aspects of fire damper and combination fire smoke damper installations, which are technically unnecessary, potentially detrimental to the installation, and which could result in voiding the UL listing of the damper. Specifically, these are number 1, sealing the retaining angles to the wall, floor, etc. And number 2, placing materials such as mineral wool and fire caulking in the angular space or expansion space. Understand that all UL listed dampers are tested in accordance to UL test standards. UL 555 is test standard for fire dampers, while UL 555S is the test standard for smoke dampers. Combination fire and smoke dampers must meet the test requirements for both UL test standards. Based on these tests, dampers are then given a fire rating, leakage rating, or both for combination dampers. Manufacturers test their dampers in accordance with specific mounting and installation requirements. These requirements are then listed in the manufacturer's installation instructions. If a damper is then installed on a project in accordance with these installation instructions, it can be designated as an approved installation. Any deviation from the specifics of the manufacturer's installation instructions could be deemed as not approved, unless the deviation is approved or accepted by the manufacturer. In some cases, local authorities having jurisdiction can and have accepted installations which deviate from the specific requirements of the manufacturer. In those instances, the local authority then accepts the liability for the possibility of damper failure due to improper installation. How many of you have seen fire caulking in the area of here and here, and also here and here, essentially sealing the retaining angles to the wall or floor? I've seen it before, and in reality, when I was first getting into this business, didn't know any different. I thought more fire caulking the better, more fire stopping material the better. But that's not the case when it comes to fire damper installations. Know that when putting fire caulking in these particular areas around the retaining angles, the caulking itself has to be specifically allowable by the manufacturer, number 1. Some are allowed. And then, number 2, it has to be applied specifically as the manufacturer states. So, just blatant and reckless fire caulking in those areas is not acceptable, because it could prevent the fire damper from operating like it's supposed to. Sealing the retaining angles is not a requirement for an approved damper installation. Building officials sometimes require sealing the angles as a measure to prevent smoke movement across the protected barrier. The potential for significant movement of smoke behind the angles to the opposite side of the protected opening is minimal. However, in the instances where the sealing is mandated by the local authority, only specific sealants which have been tested by the manufacturer are allowable. Secondly, let's look at this particular area right here, which I'm going to actually color it in. This is angular space or expansion space, and no materials are allowable in this space. No manufacturer that I've looked at actually allows any type of material in this space. Rock wool, fire stopping materials, you name it. So nothing ever can be allowed in the angular space. This area that I just mentioned talks about placing mineral wool, ceramic fiber, or fire stopping products within the expansion space. Once again, the rationale for this by building officials is to limit smoke migration. Know that we've reviewed numerous manufacturers, and to our knowledge, no damper manufacturer has tested or will approve a damper installation where materials of any type are introduced into the expansion space. To do so could render the damper inoperable if the provision for thermal expansion is compromised.
Thank you guys for being with me for this short session. A couple takeaways that we can take away from this session is, number 1, there shouldn't be fire caulk in and around those retaining angles. If someone places it around the retaining angles and you show up to inspect, I would call it out. I'd call it out and make them remove it unless they can provide you documentation from the manufacturer that the caulking used is acceptable in the locations installed. Number two, as it deals with the expansion space or the angular space, nothing should ever be installed in this space, such as rock wool or fire caulking. So know that, because this could prevent the damper from operating as intended. I hope that you've enjoyed this week, and I hope that this has shed a little bit of light on dampers and how we're supposed to deal with fire caulking in and around the angular space and retaining angles. In closing, I guess you can tell that I am in my orange and blue. It's been an exciting Sunday as my Auburn Tigers are going to the Final Four. Have a great week, and I look forward to coming back next week.